Greetings. You're sitting with the Backyard Buddha. Today I wanted to talk first about sacred geometry. When I was in high school, I struggled with math. Now I know better. Nothing has to be a struggle. You have to allow that. At any rate, in my frustration, I asked my professor, what purpose would this possibly serve in my life? And he said, using an algebraic formula, you can measure the height of the building. And I said, I can go look that up either on the blueprints or the registry of deeds. And he said, well, you could measure the circumference of an orange. And I said, I already own a tape measure. And he gave me some third example, to which I was equally unimpressed. And I sort of shut down a section of myself against absorbing mathematical information. Although I did somehow get all the way to trigonometry in school before I graduated, and I think because I excelled in English and art, my math teachers were a bit under the impression that, she's so left-brained, she got a not-so-great grade, but we'll let her go through because she's good at everything else. At any rate, when I attended college for the first time, I took a course called Mathematical Modules, and I taught myself math again, all the way from the very beginning to, I think I went to calculus, but at any rate, much later I discovered sacred geometry. And during my art training, I discovered mathematical formulas such as the golden ratio and measurements of 5 given in reference to proportion, and it started to dawn on me that maybe math wasn't such an evil thing to fight with my father about. Maybe it was just part of the way the universe was actually functioning. So the more I explored both sacred geometry and just regular math, I began to realize, and computer language actually too, because binary code figures into all this. But at any rate, as I lost my fear of numbers and learned to embrace them, I slowly noticed that there were things that I was learning both scientifically and spiritually that could be applied to my artistic process and thereby maybe catapult it to some new level. And I got my affirmation of that inkling being correct in the example of drawing a rose. From the time I was about 4 years old, I can distinctly remember being able to draw daisies, forget-me-nots, even lilacs and lily of the valley with great accuracy for someone my age, but the rose just was always a disaster, and between the ages of 4 and 14, I drew maybe 2 that I wasn't so ashamed of that I didn't throw them away or roll them up in a ball. I actually showed them to someone else, for which I'm sure I received adequate praise, but in my heart I felt that they just weren't good. Well, good is a moral judgment. That's not a great word to choose here. That they just weren't as great as I could possibly create, that they were just adequate. They weren't anything special. So the more I learned about the geometry and the ratios and binary and other factions of information that my brain was sucking up like a sponge, I was drawing and drawing and drawing, and about 6 years ago, maybe longer now, wow, time does fly. Okay, so around 12 years ago, I decided that I was going to draw a rose, and it actually looked like a rose. And the process of drawing it wasn't arduous as it had been in the past, and I didn't have to think about it. It was as if my studies had downloaded a set of data into my cranium that made it possible for the creative conduit that runs from the higher power through me onto a piece of paper to have a certain knowing of information that allowed me to draw what in the end I thought was an absolutely stunning rendering of a rose, and something that I was proud to share with the general public, and something that evokes a great emotional response from many people that see my art. And then in quick succession, I did tonal studies, one in green, one in rust, one in blue, of actual combinations of roses in different stages of opening, not truly like a bouquet in a vase, but just more like a naturalist rendering the pictures of the rose in a bud, the rose partway open, the rose in full bloom, etc. And I found that the more drawings I did like that, the more ease accompanied their creation, and also the level of enjoyment that I had making them just continued to, and continues to now, accelerate as I make more and more of those drawings. So I guess my message within there is threefold. The first thing that it makes me think is that practice can indeed, with an open mind and an open heart, certainly equal, not what I call perfect, but that's the saying, practice makes perfect. Practice makes much better. Practice makes improvement. So without putting the burden of perfection on anyone, I think the adage of try again, if it's something you love, yes, please keep pursuing it with vigor. Don't be discouraged. Find additional information that can help you get the result you want with whatever you're passionate about. Input is a good thing, which brings me to my second message. Knowledge is power. And with the advent of the internet, I was talking the other day about the dichotomy of expansion and contraction at the same time. It makes the world so large in the measurement of information available, but it makes it so much smaller in the way that we can connect. Unlike when I was talking about the Pony Express and the distance and the time it used to take to travel, and how now you don't even have to leave your desk and you can go anywhere in the world. That knowledge is an important resource. So I advise researching what you decide you're going to believe in, rather than just randomly accepting anyone's word about anything. And once you have that knowledge, use it to see that there are forces in the universe that are using both technological and natural psychological forms of knowledge against humanity as a whole. There are forces in the cabal that have spent billions of dollars to learn how to manipulate the masses, and right now it seems to me they're being very successful on some part of society, but that there's also another realm in a dimension where many people in humankind are awakening. And once somebody is awake, I think it's pretty impossible to fall back asleep. So for those people, the knowledge that you gather, I think it's very important to share it with people you love, or people that you encounter that seem to be of the mind that government is a good thing, and that people should just obey the rules, and that everyone should just follow along blindly like a sheep. We all know where that leads. And that brings me to my third point of the day. I think right now unity is imperative, and I feel that the evil cabal is using every method possible to create dissension and division. And I think the reason that seems to be such a major goal of theirs is manifold, but that the primary focus is being put on creating division between the masses, because there are simply, mathematically, many more of us than there are of them. And even that division needs to be examined. There are people who believe that they don't fall in the category of humanity, and we can discuss that at another time. It may or may not be accurate. But the point is, the number of people who control the media, the purse strings of the universe, big pharma, and our governments, especially here in the United States, are certainly outnumbered by the amount of people who are just average and living their everyday lives. Therefore, that mathematical inequity is creating an urgency in their camp, because when enough people wake up and people can begin to unite, and people employ peaceful, not warful methodology to correct the feminine-masculine imbalance that has our universe off kilter in the first place, they know that we will certainly be successful in our attempt to create a completely new paradigm and undo structures that have held humanity repressed for the ages. And that fear that they have of us being able to break out of the amnesia spell is something that we can use against them. Because believe you me, truth be known, they are using fear every day. Once a month, I leave a TV running in my house in the background while I go about my daily business, and I keep a chart of advertising. It has a category, a rate of frequency, and then I dissect what the underlying message of the advertisement was. 3 dangerous things I see in advertising on major media, television-wise, and even on air right now, public radio, is that Big Pharma has by far outpaced every other category of ads. And they are using baby boomer music in the background. They are targeting a certain audience. Big Pharma is a band-aid on an industry that does not want to cure or heal you. If you willingly walk into the Big Pharma boom, whether you're attracted through the music or all the options that are out there for this or that, you might want to instead block out the entire ad until the very end where they list the side effects. This is being done in print media too. I have a few magazine subscriptions that I still maintain, and to give you a generic example, one of the major household magazines that gives advice about decorating and food and trends and families, I won't mention a name, had 79 pages of print this month. And after I removed ads for Big Pharma and over-the-counter drugs, there was 32 pages to read. And every month after I remove those pages, I fold them up, I put them in with the same "I don't want to see this in your magazine" letter and send it to the editor, which is promptly ignored. But if 5,000 people did that every month and they didn't change anything, and then we all canceled our subscription, they might take up a little bit of notice and make some type of alteration. So that's a kind of peaceful unity that can help facilitate change. I want people to understand I'm not talking about grabbing your bayonet and going out and stabbing your neighbor. I'm talking about ways to bring things together and to collectively make alterations in our own life choices that will affect humanity in a positive way, and at the same time inject some type of dent into the huge system in which we've all been indoctrinated in. And this isn't about blaming anybody. It's about waking up ourselves and choosing to live a different way than the way that we have been living. Well, right now, I'm getting distracted by the beautiful cornflowers and Queen Anne's lace in the field and the yarrow growing nearby. So I am going to go clip some plants, make some tea, put a beautiful bouquet on my outdoor table, and maybe I'll be back later to ramble some more. Blessings and light.